The summer of 1978 hung heavy over Louisville, Kentucky. The air shimmered with heat as Muhammad Ali stood tall on his sprawling farm, sweat glistening on his brow as he gazed at the midnight black stallion pawing at the ground in the corral before him. Thunder's Echo, that's what Ali had named him. 17 hands high, with muscles rippling beneath a coat that gleamed like polished obsidian in the afternoon sun. The horse's wild eyes darted suspiciously at the small crowd of reporters, trainers, and curious onlookers who had gathered at the champion's invitation. "This here is the most untamable horse in all of Kentucky," Ali announced, his voice carrying across the property with the same commanding presence that had made him famous in the ring. Maybe in all of America." His smile was wide, confident, the smile of a man who had conquered the world and was simply looking for new mountains to climb. 3 Olympic riders, 5 professional jockeys, and 7 rodeo champions have all tried to stay on Thunder's back for more than 30 seconds. Every single one of them ended up eating dirt. The reporters scribbled furiously in their notepads. Ali had a knack for creating headlines, and today was no exception. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a check, holding it high above his head so that everyone could see the amount written on it. $1 million. $1 million, he repeated, his eyes scanning the crowd. "That's what I'm offering to anyone who can ride Thunder's Echo for a full minute. 1 minute on his back without falling off. No tricks, no special saddles, no sedatives for the horse. Just raw courage and skill." A murmur rippled through the gathering. In 1978, $1 million was a fortune that could change lives forever. Ali knew this, of course. He was a master of spectacle, of creating moments that people would remember for decades to come. "Is the great Muhammad Ali afraid of losing his money?" one reporter called out, a smirk playing on his lips. Ali laughed, the sound booming across the farm. "I fear no man, and I fear no bet. This horse cannot be tamed by conventional methods. I've had him for 3 years, and not even my best trainers have managed to break him. That's why I'm making this bet. If there's someone out there with the skill and courage to ride Thunder's Echo, then they deserve my $1 million." The challenge spread like wildfire across Kentucky, then across the nation. The newspapers and television stations carried the story of the champion boxer and his untamable horse. People speculated about Thunder's Echo's past, about why he was so wild, so resistant to human control. Some said he had been mistreated by previous owners. Others claimed he was simply born with a spirit too free to be broken. Within days, a parade of would-be riders began to arrive at Ali's farm. Professional horsemen, daredevils, and thrill-seekers, all drawn by the allure of instant wealth and the chance to prove themselves against a legend's challenge. One by one, they were thrown, some within seconds of mounting, others after a brief, violent struggle that ended with them sprawled in the dust of the corral. After each failed attempt, Ali would help the rider to their feet, dust them off, and say with genuine respect, "You've got heart, but Thunder's got more." Then he would look into the camera lenses pointed his way and add, "The offer still stands. $1 million to anyone who can ride Thunder's Echo for 60 seconds. If this story has already made you feel something, no matter how small, don't leave without giving back. Comment and tell me where you're watching this video from, and subscribe to the channel. By the end of the week, 15 riders had tried and failed. Some had suffered minor injuries, bruises, sprains, one broken wrist. Thunder's reputation grew with each defeated challenger. The horse seemed to take a fierce pride in remaining untamed, in rejecting every human who dared to climb onto his back. On the 8th day, a man arrived with credentials that impressed even Ali. A 3-time rodeo champion who had written books on horsebreaking and trained animals for Hollywood films. "I've never met a horse I couldn't ride," he told Ali with quiet confidence. The gathered crowd held their breath as he approached Thunder with slow, deliberate movements. For a moment, it seemed as if this man might succeed where others had failed. He spoke softly to the horse, moved with practiced precision, and managed to mount without Thunder immediately bucking. But then, as if offended by the man's presumption, Thunder reared up with such sudden violence that the champion was thrown 10 feet through the air, landing hard on his back, the wind knocked out of him. Ali helped him up, genuine concern on his face. "You all right, champ?" The man nodded, wincing. That's some horse you've got there, Ali. I've ridden thousands, and I've never felt anything like that." "It's like he knows what you're thinking before you do." Ali nodded thoughtfully. "Thunder's Echo isn't just any horse. He's got something special inside him, something that won't be conquered by force or technique alone." As the days passed, the spectacle continued. Local television stations began to broadcast the attempts live. People brought picnic baskets and lawn chairs, turning the challenge into a community event. Ali, ever the entertainer, would address the crowd between attempts, telling stories and making predictions. "Thunder's Echo is teaching us all something about freedom," he announced one afternoon, as the golden light of sunset cast long shadows across the farm. "Some spirits aren't meant to be broken, some fights aren't won with strength or skill, but with something else entirely. I don't know if anyone will ever collect this $1 million, but I know we're all learning something valuable by watching." Little did Ali know that the very next day, his words would be tested in a way that none of the gathered spectators could have predicted. The morning dawned misty and cool, a brief respite from the Kentucky summer heat. Ali sat on the porch of his farmhouse, sipping coffee and watching the world wake up around him. Thunder's Echo grazed peacefully in the distance, seemingly transformed from the fierce, untamable beast of the previous days into an ordinary horse enjoying the fresh grass. But Ali knew better. The moment anyone approached with a saddle or bridle, that peaceful demeanor would vanish. A small blue pickup truck rattled up the long driveway, dust billowing behind it. Ali watched with mild curiosity as it parked, and a tall, thin man stepped out, followed by a child, a boy who couldn't have been more than 12 years old, with dark skin, close-cropped hair, and eyes that seemed older than his years. The man approached, hat in hand, clearly nervous to be meeting the heavyweight champion of the world. "Mr. Ali, sir, I'm sorry to bother you at your home. My name is James Wilson. This is my son, Marcus." Ali stood, extending his hand with the warmth and graciousness that endeared him to millions. "No bother at all. What can I do for you folks this morning?" James Wilson shifted his weight uncomfortably. "Well, sir, we've been hearing about your challenge, about the horse that can't be ridden and the $1 million. Ali's eyebrows rose slightly as he glanced at the boy, who was staring not at him, but at Thunder's Echo in the distance. "You're not suggesting that your boy there wants to try riding Thunder, are you? I've had grown men, professional riders, leave here with broken bones." "Marcus has a way with horses, Mr. Ali," James said quietly. "He's been riding since he was 4 years old. His grandfather was a horse trainer for wealthy families back in the day. Taught Marcus everything he knew before he passed." Ali studied the boy more carefully now. Marcus stood straight, his gaze steady as it finally shifted from the horse to meet Ali's eyes. There was no bravado there, no childish excitement at the prospect of meeting a celebrity or winning money. Instead, Ali saw something he recognized. A quiet, unshakable confidence that came not from arrogance but from knowing oneself. "Son," Ali said, addressing Marcus directly, "this isn't like riding the horses you're used to. Thunder's Echo has thrown men with 30 years of experience. I can't in good conscience let a child risk getting seriously hurt." For the first time, Marcus spoke, his voice soft but clear. "I don't want to hurt him, sir. And I don't think he wants to hurt anyone either. He's just scared. Something in the boy's words gave Ali pause. Scared? Thunder? He's the one doing the scaring around here. Marcus shook his head. I watched the news last night. Saw how people were trying to ride him. They were all trying to show him who's boss. That's not how you make friends with someone who's been hurt before. Ali's interest was genuinely piqued now. And how do you know he's been hurt before? The way he holds his head, the way he watches people from the corner of his eye. Someone was cruel to him once. Maybe more than once. Marcus spoke with such certainty that Ali found himself reconsidering his initial refusal. James put a hand on his son's shoulder. Mr. Ali, I wouldn't ask this if I didn't believe Marcus could do it safely. We don't even care about the money. He saw that horse on TV and hasn't stopped talking about him since. Ali looked between father and son, then at Thunder's Echo in the distance. The horse had raised his head and was watching them, as if sensing that he was the subject of their conversation. After a long moment, Ali nodded slowly. All right, but we do this my way. I want a doctor present, and you'll wear safety gear, helmet, vest, the works, and your father signs a waiver. If at any point I think you're in real danger, I'm calling it off. Understood? Marcus nodded solemnly. Yes, sir, thank you, sir. Word spread quickly that a child would be attempting the challenge. By midday, a crowd had gathered once again, locals, reporters, and the merely curious, all drawn by the incredible notion that a boy might succeed where professionals had failed. The television crews set up their equipment, and Ali found himself fielding questions about his decision to allow a child to participate. I believe in giving everyone a fair chance, he told the reporters, though privately he had already determined that Marcus would approach Thunder only under the strictest safety precautions, and that the attempt would be called off at the first sign of danger. This was meant to be entertainment, not tragedy. As the appointed hour arrived, Ali stood with Marcus at the edge of the corral. The boy was now dressed in protective gear that made him look even smaller than he was. His father stood nearby, worry etched into every line of his face, despite his earlier confidence in his son's abilities. You sure about this, young man? Ali asked one final time. No one will think less of you if you change your mind. Marcus looked up at him with those serious eyes. I'm sure, Mr. Ali. May I go to him now? Ali nodded and opened the gate to the corral. The crowd fell silent as the small figure stepped into the ring with the infamous Thunder's Echo. The contrast was striking, the massive and muscular horse and the slight boy approaching him with measured steps. What happened next would be recounted in Louisville for generations to come. Thunder's Echo watched the small human enter his domain, ears flicking forward then back, nostrils flaring as he caught the boy's scent. The horse had grown accustomed to the routine over the past week. Humans would enter his space, approach with determination, attempt to assert dominance, and ultimately find themselves thrown to the ground. It was a dance he had mastered, a battle he always won. But this human moved differently. Marcus made no attempt to head directly for the horse. Instead, he walked to the center of the corral and simply sat down in the dirt, cross-legged, his back straight, his hands resting open on his knees. Then he did something that caused murmurs to ripple through the crowd. He began to hum, a low, melodic sound that carried across the suddenly quiet farm. Ali, standing at the fence with James Wilson, frowned in confusion. What's he doing? James shook his head slightly, his eyes never leaving his son. I don't know. This isn't what he usually does with horses. In the corral, Thunder's Echo tilted his head, ears pricked forward now, clearly intrigued by this deviation from the expected pattern. The massive horse took a step toward the small boy, then another, caution in every movement. Marcus continued to hum, the same gentle melody, over and over. He made no move to look directly at Thunder, instead keeping his gaze soft, focused on the middle distance. The minutes stretched on. 5, then 10. The crowd began to grow restless, some whispering that this was a waste of time, others suggesting that the boy was too afraid to actually approach the horse. Ali silenced them with a look. Something told him to let this play out, to give the boy the space to try whatever method he had in mind. After 15 minutes, Thunder had moved to within 10 feet of Marcus, close enough that the boy could feel the horse's breath on his skin. Still, Marcus made no sudden movements. Instead, he began to speak, his voice so quiet that even those standing nearest the fence couldn't make out his words. "What's he saying?" Ali asked James. I think he's telling Thunder a story," James replied, straining to hear. "It's something his grandfather used to do with nervous horses. He'd tell them stories about wide-open plains and running free." In the corral, Marcus had finally turned his head to look directly at Thunder. The horse hadn't retreated. Instead, he lowered his massive head until his eyes were level with the boy's. For a long, breathless moment, they regarded each other in silence. Then, slowly, Marcus raised his hand, palm open, and held it out. Thunder snorted, pawing at the ground. The crowd held its collective breath, many expecting the horse to rear up, to lash out as he had with every other challenger. Instead, after what seemed like an eternity, Thunder extended his neck and pressed his nose against the boy's palm. A gasp went up from the onlookers. Ali found himself gripping the fence tightly, torn between amazement and concern that the situation could still turn dangerous in an instant. Marcus stood now, still moving with that same deliberate slowness. He continued to speak softly to the horse, maintaining eye contact, his hand gently stroking Thunder's neck. Then he did something that caused Ali's heart to leap into his throat. He began to walk around to Thunder's side. "Marcus!" James called out in warning, but Ali placed a restraining hand on the father's arm. "Wait!" the champion said. "Just wait." In small, incremental movements, Marcus positioned himself beside Thunder's echo. The horse remained unnaturally still, as if mesmerized by the boy's presence. Then, with the same unhurried deliberation that had characterized every action thus far, Marcus placed his hands on Thunder's back and hoisted himself up. The crowd went silent. Thunder's muscles tensed visibly. His head came up, ears flattening against his skull. Everyone expected the explosion of movement that would send the boy flying. Ollie found himself moving toward the gate, ready to intervene if necessary. But the explosion never came. Instead, after a moment of rigid tension, Thunder relaxed. Marcus sat upright on the horse's bare back, still speaking those quiet words that only Thunder could hear. Then, incredibly, he leaned forward and wrapped his arms around the horse's neck in an embrace. "My God," Ali breathed, unable to believe what he was seeing. In all his years around horses, he had never witnessed anything like this, a complete transformation, not through force or dominance, but through something far more powerful. Marcus straightened up again and gently squeezed his legs against Thunder's sides. The horse began to walk, carrying the boy in a slow circle around the corral. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers, but Marcus seemed oblivious to the commotion. His focus remained entirely on the connection he had formed with this supposedly untamable beast. After completing the circle, Marcus guided Thunder to where Ali stood at the fence. The boy's face was transformed, alight with joy and something deeper, a profound respect for the animal beneath him. "He's not mean, Mr. Ali," Marcus said, loud enough now for those nearby to hear. "He's just been waiting for someone to listen instead of trying to make him submit." Ali stared up at the boy in wonder. In that moment, with the Kentucky sun illuminating them both, he saw something of himself in Marcus, the refusal to be defined by others, expectations, the quiet dignity that came from true self-knowledge. Here was a different kind of courage than what Ali had been looking for, a different kind of strength than what had made him a champion. "The clock," someone called out. "He hasn't ridden for the full minute yet." Ali looked at his watch, then laughed. "Son, you've been on that horse for nearly 20 minutes now." A cheer went up from the crowd, along with chants of, "Pay him, pay him!" Ali held up his hands for silence, his expression thoughtful as he regarded the boy and the horse, now seemingly inseparable. "I think," Ali said slowly, "that we all just witnessed something more valuable than any prize I could offer." As the summer sun began its descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the corral, Muhammad Ali stood before the assembled crowd, the $1 million check in his hand and a look of profound respect on his face. Beside him stood Marcus Wilson, small for his 12 years but standing tall, his father's hand resting proudly on his shoulder. And nearby, remarkably, stood Thunder's Echo, calm and attentive in a way that none of Ali's staff had ever witnessed before. "Today," Ali began, his voice carrying across the hushed gathering, "I offered a challenge that I believed was impossible. I put up $1 million because I was certain that Thunder's Echo could not be ridden. I was wrong." He paused, looking down at Marcus with a smile. But I was wrong in a way that teaches us all something important." Ali turned to address the television cameras directly, knowing that his words would reach far beyond the confines of his farm. "We often think that strength means domination, that victory means forcing another to submit to our will. Young Marcus here has shown us a different kind of strength, the strength to listen, to understand, to connect rather than conquer." He held up the check. "This $1 million belongs to Marcus Wilson. He has done what no professional rider, no expert, no champion could do. He rode Thunder's Echo not for 30 seconds, not for the required minute, but for 28 minutes before he chose to dismount." The crowd erupted in applause. Marcus looked up at Ali, his expression serious. "Mr. Ali," he said, his voice barely audible above the noise, "I don't want the money." Ali blinked in surprise. "And what did you say, son?" "I don't want the money," Marcus repeated, louder now. "I just want to keep visiting Thunder. I think he gets lonely." A hush fell over the crowd as Ali crouched down to eye level with the boy. "You're turning down $1 million so you can visit a horse," Marcus nodded solemnly. "Money's just paper, sir. Thunder's a friend. And my grandpa always said you can't put a price on friendship." Ali was speechless for a moment, genuinely moved by the wisdom in the child's words. Then he straightened up, addressing James Wilson. "Your son is an extraordinary young man." "Yes, sir, he is," James agreed, his eyes shining with pride. Ali thought for a moment, then made a decision. "Here's what we're going to do. This $1 million is going into a trust fund for Marcus's education. And as for Thunder's Echo," he looked at the horse, who was watching the proceedings with unusual interest, "I think he's found his person. If you're willing, I'd like to work out an arrangement where Marcus can come train with Thunder whenever he wants, maybe even help with some of my other horses." James looked stunned. "Mr. Ali, that's incredibly generous. But we couldn't possibly—" "It's not generosity," Ali interrupted. "It's recognition of a special talent. I've spent my life identifying potential in people, Mr. Wilson. Your son has a gift that shouldn't be wasted." The arrangement was made official right there, with reporters capturing every word, every handshake. But it was what happened after the formal proceedings that truly cemented the legend of Muhammad Ali's $1 million horse. As the crowd began to disperse, Ali walked with Marcus back to the corral, where Thunder waited. "I'm curious about something, son," Ali said. "What were you saying to him all that time? What secret words do you know that none of those professionals knew?" Marcus looked up at the boxing legend, his expression earnest. I wasn't saying anything special, Mr. Ali. I was just telling him that I understood what it feels like when people want you to be something you're not. When they try to make you fit into their idea of who you should be instead of who you are. Ali stopped walking, struck by the profound simplicity of the boy's words. In his mind flashed images from his own life, the pressure to conform, to be less outspoken, to accept limitations placed on him by a society that wasn't ready for a black champion who spoke his truth without apology. "How did you get so wise, Marcus Wilson?" Ali asked softly. Marcus shrugged. "My grandpa said, wisdom is just paying attention to the important things that most people miss." In the months and years that followed, the story of Thunder's Echo and the boy who tamed him became part of Muhammad Ali's legend. The trust fund allowed Marcus to eventually attend veterinary school, specializing in equine medicine and behavior. The partnership between boy and horse blossomed into something that drew visitors from around the world to Ali's farm, where Marcus would demonstrate his gentle methods to aspiring trainers. And Ali himself, already known for his philosophical nature, often cited that summer day as one of the most profound learning experiences of his life. "And I offered $1 million to anyone who could dominate a horse," he would say in interviews, "but a child showed me that understanding is more powerful than dominance. That's a lesson worth more than any amount of money." On warm Kentucky evenings, visitors to the farm might glimpse an unusual sight: the greatest boxer in history and a young boy sitting on the porch, watching as Thunder's Echo grazed peacefully in the golden light of sunset. Two champions and a once wild horse, each having taught the others something essential about the true nature of strength, of freedom, and of connection. If you've made it this far and felt every word, don't leave without subscribing. I tell these stories with my heart in my hand to reach people like you, who feel, who get emotional, who live. If this truly touched you, give back, comment, subscribe, come be part of this family with me until the next video.